So the first thing I want to talk about is, let's get that going. Okay, cool. The first thing I'm going to talk about is digital transformation, which is a really hot topic in the industry at the moment, and I think a really good place to start. Digital transformation is really about embracing the necessity of change to help your business grow and succeed in the 21st century. But when we talk about digital transformation, what changes are we talking about? Well, we're talking about optimizing the way that your business runs and identifying and implementing efficiencies. Now, when I talk about these things, I'm not just talking about purely from a technology standpoint. I'm actually talking from a broader business process and people standpoint as well. As you would probably all be aware, there's no magic efficiency switch that we can flip in any of our businesses. It actually takes concerted time and effort to find efficiencies and then work them into the processes that we have when we're performing our jobs. So when we talk about digital transformation, we're actually talking about a process of change, changing the foundation of how your business actually works. So many of you, as I said, probably already are aware that, in order for your business to continue to grow and succeed in the 21st century, you're going to have to transform it, and you're probably going to have to undertake a digital transformation underpinned by a change in the way you use and execute using technology. So what I want to talk about next is, sort of the challenges that we see with digital transformation. We know that change is hard. People don't like to change. Oftentimes, particularly depending on the age of your business, change might be hard to implement. The way that you do things today may have worked really well for you in the past, but the question is, will they continue to work well for you into the future in a new and hyper-competitive landscape? So making the decision to change is actually only the first step. Sometimes it's the hardest step to take, but it's this first step, only the first step in a process. So it could be that you've decided that you need to change because there's increased market demand. Maybe the market has changed, and goodness knows that the last year and a half has seen a massive change in many markets. It could be that you're facing stiff competition from a new or emerging competitor, maybe one from a different country that you haven't traditionally had to compete against. But ultimately, the bottom line is that in order to survive or succeed, change is inevitable. So I do want to say that when we talk about change here, again, we're not just talking about changing technology. We're also talking about the way we do our work, the processes we use to do that work, and the skills and capabilities that we have in the people that we have working in our businesses. So once you've made this decision, you then have to work on how am I going to impact the processes in my business, and what sort of people do I need to have for the continued growth and success of my business into the future. So cloud is clearly a cornerstone of digital transformation. I think in the industry, it's hard to not see that relationship between becoming an agile, future-focused business and moving to a cloud platform like Microsoft Azure. But it is a step-by-step process. So let's talk a little bit about the ROI and possible uplift that you might see in going through these transformations. So ultimately, shifting from operating in an on-premises world today into a cloud platform actually does have a measurable uplift impact to your business. Now, I will say that ultimately the impact that your business will see will depend on the way you change the way you do things in your business today. So the idea of, and you may have heard the term of lift and shift, taking the services and software that you have today running in your data center or in your office and simply moving them into a similar sort of construct inside of Microsoft Azure, so on virtual machines and those sorts of things, may not necessarily result in the sort of return on investment that you're expecting. And then the same also applies to the processes that you use today. Simply taking those processes and mapping them over these new constructs that you have available to you in a public cloud platform may not represent the best way to do things. So again, now is a time, as you make these transitions, to review both the technology, the software that you're using, the way you're using it, and then the processes that you use to manage those environments today. So depending on the size of your business, it could be a fairly simple exercise to move into the cloud. You might decide to move on to software as a service or SaaS offerings rather than having to continue to run your own software. But it could be that for larger businesses, you have a range of in-house built software or services or third-party off-the-shelf software that is core to the running of your business that you actually do need to migrate into the cloud. So let's take a look at one of the ways that Microsoft provides support for businesses to go on that journey. So I want to talk a little bit about the Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework for Azure. So Microsoft loves its acronyms. So when we talk about Cloud Adoption Framework, you'll often hear the acronym CAF, C-A-F mentioned. So CAF is a multi-step process that is really designed to help you go from the very early stages of cloud adoption all the way through to a mature organization managing and operating as a public cloud hosted business. So you can see each of the modules here on the screen represents a step in that process. And it's not a process where you have to start at define strategy and then finish at adopt. It's actually, you may be on any number of these steps and in different steps in different parts of your business as well, depending on the maturity that you have across teams. And, you know, shadow IT has led to a lot of cloud adoption in businesses already today. So it could be that some parts of your business will be at different levels of maturity. But the one thing I did want to call out here is the Ready module. So you'll see here when we talk about Ready, we talk about preparing people, process, and environment for change. And it kind of comes back to what I was talking about just on the last slide, is moving to the public cloud and to Microsoft Azure. It's not just a lift and shift. It's not just maintaining the status quo about the way you do things today, about the way you operate your software. It's an opportunity to reinvent the way that you do things. It's an opportunity to sit down and look at what expertise you have in the teams in your business today and what expertise you may need going forward. And the opportunity to grow the people that you have in your business today. Goodness knows we're in a constrained marketplace for skills at the moment in Australia. So now is the time to invest in the people that you do have. They already know your business really well. Maybe they just have some skills gaps. So it's an opportunity for you to invest in those people and for those people to also invest in themselves as well. So when we talk about cloud adoption, again, we're not just talking about technology, we are talking about people and process as well. Going one step further, if we look at plan and we look at manage on the cloud adoption framework, you'll see under plan we have initial organization alignment. That's about getting your business set up correctly to operate in this new cloud world. Skills readiness plan, sitting down again and mapping what skills you have, what skills you'll need, and figuring out what the gap is and what the investments might look like to help fill those gaps, either through upskilling people that you already have or bringing in capability from outside of the business to help grow that capability going forward. And then once you've adopted the cloud, it's not just a sort of a one and done, hands dusted and forevermore no change. It's an ongoing evolution. The cloud brings new opportunities for continued innovation and changes to your business that you've probably not had the opportunity to explore before because you've committed to 3 to 5 years of expenses for the infrastructure that you're standing up in your businesses and haven't had the opportunity to sort of use that consumption-based model that you get out of a cloud platform like Azure, where you can turn services on and off as required, experiment, decide that there's no future in that experiment and commit no more funds to it once you turn it off and remove that capability from your cloud platform. So the manage module of the cloud adoption framework has a big component. If I could just ask someone to go on mute there, that would be awesome. The manage phase for the cloud adoption framework has the idea of operations baseline and operations maturity. Operating these platforms is also a big component. All right, so I'm doing well for time, so we're good. So yeah, that manage phase is really going to require you to also invest in the skills and expertise that you have. So you can obviously build all of that experience through migrating into the cloud, but then there's also the opportunity for continuing to follow the innovation from cloud platforms like Microsoft Azure. We regularly change service offerings. We regularly add new features. Sometimes we deprecate service offerings as well. So it's important that not only do you know how to migrate to the cloud, but you then also know how to manage and operate and build with the cloud going forward as well. Which leads me to the next component, which is, and I can get to the next slide. New skills to support this transformation and ultimate operation in the cloud environment. So we know that a majority of companies are investing in the public cloud. And it's whether it's an opportunity for them to rationalize costs and manage their business growth through reduced overheads, or through looking to innovate through access to new services or capabilities that they haven't had access to previously. We know that the majority of companies are on this cloud journey to some degree. There's a pretty good chance that if they're not fully in the cloud, there'll be a hybrid cloud. So they may be on-premises in the cloud, or they might be multi-cloud as well in some companies' cases. When we look at this approach, we think about the underpinning of technology once you make it into the cloud. In Microsoft, we have this idea of technical intensity or tech intensity. You may hear Satya Nadella talk about it periodically. And it's about actually really doubling down on your investment in use of technology to help grow your business. So you may have heard the phrase, every business is a software business. That may or may not be true for your company to some degree or another. But ultimately, if you're looking to differentiate yourself against competitors in the marketplace, a cloud platform like Microsoft Azure is absolutely the place to do that, because you have over 140 different services that you can use to benefit the ideas or build the ideas that you have for your business going forward. So, you know, the interesting thing for me here is, you know, there's uplift here. I'm not likely to talk in this presentation about the downsides, but ultimately there's not many of those downsides, other than maybe the additional management of training schedules and budgets. But ultimately the uplift out of those is measurable and impactful on your business. So, you know, whether it's to be more innovative, to be more competitive, or to grow your business, there's a real reason why we want to focus on training in our business. So I noticed before that we had one of the EY team on this call. So this deck comes from our corporate team. So I'm not sure if this applies to the EY business in APAC, but I think, you know, when you look at a company the size of EY, when they're talking about the investment in training and uplift for their workforce, you know, their impact is going to be on their capability to help their customers succeed in their cloud transformation. So when we see a large partner like EY going down this route, I think it really gives confidence to the value of investing in people for expertise. So another concept that Satya brought to Microsoft when he took over as CEO is this idea of a growth mindset. So you have two types. You've got a closed mindset or a growth mindset. And when you're doing training, you really have to have a growth mindset. And, you know, this is about pushing yourself to better yourself, maybe not always in an area that you feel directly engaged with, but that may provide an opportunity for you to grow longer term. So I think it's important when investing in your teams that you do a few things. So not only do you reward people by allowing them to go on training and funding that training, but you also reward them for investing their time in that training. So I think you need to have a recognition program in place that says not only have we you know, invested in our people by investing in them being trained, but we're also recognizing the effort they've put in to become certified, to become trained in these particular technologies. You know, and that's also a key part of, you know, that idea that I think Richard Branson said, you know, invest in your people and train them because, and, you know, the retort is, well, if I do that, they'll leave. And he said, well, the risk is if you don't, they'll stay. And I think it's really an important aspect to this is that it's one thing to offer people the opportunity to grow through training. It's another thing for them to then stay in your business as an employee. And the way you do that is that you provide recognition for that training expertise above and beyond just sending them on the training and then expecting them to execute with those skills when they're a part of the teams or your business. That's about the feel-good factor, right? It's about keeping them vibed and in the business. Also, when you're looking at recruitment and hiring, also use certifications as a way to guide you on, you know, the value of someone when they're coming into your business. You know, if you have gaps in your business today and you maybe don't have the capability to upskill your teams, bringing in people who have already got those skills recognized through certification is a great way to uplift your team and then look to grow your team internally before you look to get them certified fully in future. And I think it's also important to take that into consideration when you look at promotions. in the business. You know, again, comes back to that idea of rewarding somebody above and beyond just simply sending them onto the training course. It's about recognizing the effort they've put in to actually grow themselves and ultimately grow their team and your business. So almost done. You know, the key thing for me here is that, you know, if you invest in your people, ultimately you will see the return on that investment, you know, probably multiple times over the period of time that someone works in your business. So as I said before, certification is a key component. Okay, so we've got 10 minutes. Certification is a key component to your learning culture. And it's, you know, it's not only the only proof for skills and expertise, but it's an important one. I think, you know, role-based certifications, so that's things like developers, data scientists, UX designers, role-based certifications are more valuable than just sort of generic certifications that you might find in the industry. And it really simplifies the ability to identify talent when you're either looking to hire or promote people in your business. So where to next? Slide I'm pressing.
Yep.
So certifications, if you want to know more about certifications, we published the full set of certifications up on Microsoft Learn. The URL's on the screen there. Look, I'm conscious of time, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap up here. Arthur or Cassandra, I'm not sure who's going to take over next to run that. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks very much,
Simon.
Simon. Appreciate that.
Could you put Belinda as a host? And we have a few questions for you. And for everyone who wants to ask any question to Simon or to our learning experts, you can ask directly your question into the chat. My first question for you, Simon, is that Azure seems to be huge into digital transformation, like it's a key part. What are the common challenges that you can face when you are adopting Azure as a solution?
Okay, so just bear with me a second here. I'm just going to stop my share. Sorry, ask that question again.
You need to put Belinda as a host. Yeah, I can re-ask the question later if you want.
I just need to find how I make them a host. Sorry, I don't use Zoom very often. Let's have a look. Belinda.
Belinda,
yeah. Belinda.
Simon, if you just click the 3 blue dots above my image, it should have that option.
Make host. There we are. Cool.
There you go. There you go.
Perfect. Thank you.
Perfect.
All right. So common challenges.
Yeah, like the common challenging of adopting Microsoft Azure.
Look, I think it's pretty obvious after that presentation. Knowledge and skills is a key thing, and it's what people struggle the most with. Now, it's absolutely possible for you to operate the same way you did today on premises in your virtualized environment and replicate that completely on Azure using our virtual machine technology. But that might save you some short-term costs and give you some medium-term growth opportunities, but really it's not going to give you that long-term innovative and agile business approach that really you want to get to with Azure. So I think investing in people so that they can start to understand what the Azure platform is, what the possibilities are that the platform offers, is a great way to get going. Now, obviously people like Next Tech can do that with in-person training and certification support, but Microsoft Learn also has a really great set of self-paced introductory courses that people can do before they kind of get into that more certification instructor-led training way of working, which, you know, they probably want to validate their own skills first before they commit to doing that sort of larger scale training. So training, skills is a key thing.
I understand. And if I want to, I can hear me. If I want to start working as a Azure developer, for example, or what's the next step of getting into the Microsoft environment? Like, what's the first what's the way of having the first certification? Is it to learn with Next Tech, or what's your advice on that?
So I feel like that's a loaded question, but I'll go with the answer that I have. Look, I think the Microsoft recognizes that the foundations need to be in place before people do those specializations. So we run a global program on a program called Azure Fundamentals. And you'll often see that we run online courses for Azure Fundamentals that includes free certification for the Azure Fundamentals certification, which is the AZ900 certification. I would absolutely recommend that as the first place for everybody to start before they then go to the Microsoft certification site that I shared in my presentation and look at the developer certification track. And that's absolutely where learning partners like Nextech come into the picture, because you guys do the great in-person training, which is, for me, oftentimes the best way to get those ideas that I maybe haven't had hands-on experience with today. So start with Azure Fundamentals and then specialize into the particular role-based certification that you want to do, in this case, developer.
Oh, okay, I understand. And maybe I had a question for Joel. As you highlight often, like people on how to choose the Microsoft training or like the Microsoft Azure training. What are the main challenge that people meet when they have to choose between all these different certification or training? What's your view on that?
So Microsoft have actually. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
do you want to take it, Simon? No, you
go,
can
Joel.
take it, Simon. Okay. Yeah, so Microsoft have actually done a really good job with how they've laid out the certifications, going down the job-based pathway. So it's actually really easy to direct someone to the correct pathway for what they're trying to achieve with Azure. So they've made it really easy for someone like myself to help someone there. If we're going about challenges, a lot of it actually is time-based more than anything. It's about smaller IT teams, especially with the modern environment, making that adjustment to cloud, maybe from being on-prem previously. There's a lot of fast-paced movement in that space now. So yeah, it's about smaller teams sort of finding the time to have someone away to actually get the skills and knowledge they need to make the moves. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge. But as I said, like it's definitely been made easy where to direct people and where they can start. And like someone said, fundamentals is probably the best position there. Start there and then sort of build to the pathway that suits your intention in how you're going to be using Azure, whether that's developer, administrator,